would say that I think of three kinds of institutions that played a tremendous role besides the public schools. Number one, the Talmud Torah. Number two, the Emmanuel Cohen Center. And number three, the synagogues. I think they all played extremely important roles. And one of the common experiences that were occurring in families in those days is many of the families were in positions where they were helping to bring over to this country relatives who were in desperate situations, and it was just the automatic thing that one did. You went, used loan societies. I just saw one of the people, Latz, and I reminded him that I used to make weekly journeys with a small amount of money, it was very small, to their grandfather, who was the treasurer of this loan society. That was a common thing to do. And we brought over two families that have made a mark in this community. Cy Wiseman and his family, his father was murdered in Russia. We brought the three boys over, and my mother's youngest sister, and we brought over the Nissenson family, and the Reverend Nissenson was here, Vera Lyons' offspring. And this was not just characteristic of my family, but this happened to with many.
The Emmanuel Cohen Center, for those times, was a godsend, because A, we had no place else to congregate, we had no way to get together as a group, and I made some lasting friends to this day that you just couldn't meet them otherwise, I don't think.
Everybody was pretty equal. Nobody was really rich, but nobody knew they were poor because all their neighbors were in the same situation. But the unique part about the Emmanuel Cohen Center was the friends you made there, they've lasted all your life. Now this was 70 years ago plus, and there's still, every 2 weeks, at least 20 of us meet for lunch and reminisce, and are still friends after all these years.
It was a place to meet. They had plenty of meeting rooms. They had a game room with pool and ping pong. They had the entertainment with the little auditorium downstairs where we held our affairs. And they had a little workshop.
Woodwork.
Little work, and upstairs, I think it was upstairs, we, living in that area, they would bring in a dentist periodically,
Right. Yeah.
and we'd get our teeth cleaned and fixed without Novocaine, by the way,
and
for free.
These young Jewish dentists of that era would do this for nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
You went in there, and for 50 cents or whatever you could afford, they fixed your teeth. It was nice.
Yeah.
We stayed at home camp.
The moral of that story is that the Emmanuel Cohen Center was a community center for the North Side, for the Jewish community, and was put there. It was first a house next door, and then they built the building, and we got a little fundraising. And kitty corner from the Emmanuel Cohen Center was the Labor Zion organization, and across the street was the home for the orphanage, the kids. So it was a community affair. It was everything we're talking about. And then some. It was a place that was home away from home.
Right.
Do you remember any of the people who worked at the center?
Oh, sure. Dutchy
Dutchy
Strauss,
Strauss,
Leo Gill,
Zami Greenberg,
Leo
Berman,
Joe Nudell.
Harold
Goldenberg.
Goldenberg.
All those guys.
Goldenberg ran it, right.
He
These
was
other
the-
guys were the athletic directors, Dutchy and Leo Berman and Zami Greenberg. They were the athletic people that took care of our sporting.
Dutchy did more than sporting.
Pardon me?
Dutchy took us on trips.
Strauss's car.
He picked up everything.
But Dutchy Strauss's car
Held 14 guys.
14 kids. Who were going to play? We're going over Northeast. 14 kids would jump in, and
Dutchy was a wonderful person.
Great guy.
Yeah.
You remember Dutchy?
Alexander, that was his name. Alexander Strauss.
One of the greatest events, we had a baseball team, and he took us to Delano. Remember that?
Yes,
yeah.
That was like going to Chicago, you know. Drove us out to Delano, we played out there and back.
He also took us as a group when we were about 14 years to St. Croix for a weekend And our meals consisted of hot dogs and salami and hot dogs.
Didn't you go to stay-at-home camp too? That was at the beginning when we were very young at the old Emmanuel Combs Center, which was a very important part of, yes, the day camp, stay-at-home camp center. There's still certain smells in the air that I associate with that camp. I don't know if it's vanilla or pudding or what.
The Jewish Community Center was an important part of my life. We went there very often, of course, in the summertime. But it was the center. It was the center of our Jewish fun part of the community, as I recall.
What sort of things did you do at the Jewish
Emmanuel Combs Center? Oh, a lot of arts and crafts. I remember really, probably feeling my artistic side really developing at the Jewish Community Center, and ultimately I went to day camp there, and eventually I was a day camp counselor, so it was an important part of my life. The Jewish Community Center, Emmanuel Combs Center, was an important part of my life as growing up.
One day Joan Odell came over, and Joan Odell was one of the workers from the Emmanuel Combs Center. And he suggested to us fellas that we come to the Emmanuel Combs Center, maybe form a club, or join some other fellows who wanted to form a club. And that's what we did. We went to the Emmanuel Combs Center, and we had our club there. I belonged to the Lowells.
What was the name of your group, Alan?
The original group was the Hakoas, and later on I joined the Arrows.
And that's what it became. Harry?
I lived on 12th and Knox, about a block and a half from Emmanuel Combs Center, and most all of us joined clubs one way or the other. It was a wonderful thing because there were no jobs, and I belonged originally to a club called the Trojans, and we used to play ball against the Arrows particularly, and then later on I belonged to a club called the Amors, and I think that and 2 summers while I was going to college, I worked at stay-at-home camp at the Emmanuel Combs Center. Probably the best experience I had in learning how to handle children was there. And my brother ran the dental clinic at the Emmanuel Combs Center.
Yeah, I lived away from the north side, our area for a long time. When I moved back to Russell Avenue, it was a new world for me.
How old were you then?
I was in 8th grade. So I promptly, I joined the Emmanuel Combs Center, and I played on all the teams of the Cardinals, and of course at North High we had the various Jewish organizations, the menorah, and we did other things. And as you know, I got involved with the newspaper, and even before that, at Lincoln, it was a very it was a period of flowering for me. I mean, it was in class play. I was editor. We had an annual. I was editor of the annual. I was class president. I mean, I did all these things, and it was just a new life for me. I'm telling you, it was a period of such vigor that I peaked very early.
We spent, I think, more time at Sumner Field. That was our home field. And that was our football team's practice there. And I can tell you, when I'm practicing in scrimmaging at Sumner Field, we had more injuries just from practice than we did regular games. The ground was hard, and no sod, no grass. But it was fun.
Ice skating there too.
It was fun. They had a tremendously large ice skating rink.
I know, I skated there.
We all did, I guess. But you know,
played tennis there too.
Wells Memorial did. Talmud Torah did have a pool, a swimming pool downstairs, and that's where we all would go there, and that's we played around there. But Wells Memorial didn't have a swimming pool, so we had to go to town. I think did they ever charge us to go there?
I'll tell you this story. I'll tell you, subsequently became my brother-in-law, Mel Fisher. Yeah. Mel Fisher played a game of basketball, and then he went into the shower room. And then the swimming pool just adjacent to the shower pool, the shower room. And Mel took his shower and he took a running dive into the pool, not knowing there wasn't any water in there.
Oh, God.
Fortunately, he didn't get hurt very bad. He just scraped up. But that was one of the most popular stories around the north side.
And Mel Fisher is famous for jumping into the Talmud Torah pool And he's the only guy that could jump into the pool that had no water in it to come out alive. Everybody knew what a tough guy he was.
A lot of fond memories, but my most fond memory was the Sumner Branch Library. When I didn't come home on time, my parents would call there and say, "Send Mary home." They let me work behind the desk. I loved it. I thought it was a castle. It had a fireplace, and it was just magic.
Also, there's the scout group. I think we connected with the Cub Pack, which was Pack 86 at Bethel, and the troop afterwards. I remember a very interesting summer program even. But there was predominantly Jewish. We met at Willard School, and they had people like Jim Pollard and Whitey Scoot from the Lakers, the real Lakers, were counselors. We had a couple of wrestlers, Butch Levy,
Giffy Odell.
And it was a marvelous program. Bonnie Behrman, may he rest, and the leaders of the Cub Pack. It was a very large Cub Pack, which grew into the scout troop. But
because I think there was like a Willard School troop. And then I think there was a group that were mostly John Hay, you know, which was across Plymouth Avenue, another grade school. I remember a few people that were from Willard that were in the John Hay troop because of siblings or something of that nature.
We made squares, so we made a blanket. I still have some squares. I don't know why they weren't in the blanket. And I remember we did camping and baking. When we went out to camp, we made a cake, remember, in the reflector oven. We did lots of more outdoors things because I think Sophie liked to do that too. It's good.
Yeah, we did a lot of singing and dancing, folk dancing. And actually the squares were put together and given to the Jewish hospital.
To Mount Sinai.
Mount Sinai.
Do you remember USY? It was a wonderful time to meet Jewish kids,
From
not
other
only
parts,
in North Minneapolis, but South Minneapolis and even St. Paul. And so we used to have mixers together.
That's right.
In North Minneapolis.
It was really, in fact, in the first place, you traditionally dated people who were older, like 2 years older, and you also there was like anthropology, say from one island, you marry people from other islands. You would date people from St. Paul or from South Minneapolis rather than people from North Minneapolis. They were like brothers.
Yeah, that's right.
Although there were certainly couples who went together, but that was sort of how you did it.
And then we even used to go to Kansas City. We went for a USY convention.
That's right.
To a USY convention, and remember that? That was fun.
There was a big thing then. I mean, that was a focal point of Jewish social life when you were, 12, 13, 14 years old.
I would say almost, you tell me if I'm wrong here, but I would say all of us dated only Jewish boys.
Our fathers certainly believed we dated only Jewish
it would have
boys.
been it would have been a real shanda.
Well, we were just looking at a student newspaper from Lincoln that Richard and I both helped to write in the exhibit area, and that was 1968, 67, 68, and in the list of writers in the student newspaper from Lincoln, there were several Jewish names. By the time we graduated from North 3 years later, we were down to just a handful of Jewish classmates.
There were 6 of us, I think, in our graduating class.
There were 10 synagogues whose names I can enumerate and which I remember yet quite vividly. Synagogues that stretched the entire length, the entire east and west direction of the north side from Lyndale to Xerxes Avenue. My recollection, there were 8 Orthodox synagogues, there was 1 conservative synagogue, and there was the Talmud Torah, which, while it was a Hebrew school, also served as a base Knesset.
We never know what we're going to be when we grow up, but we know we're going to be Jews, and we might as well be good Jews. And I'm very grateful to the Talmud Torah. And I know when I went, it was deep depression. My parents paid $1 a month for me to go, and what a tremendous experience it was for me. I truly loved it.
The Talmud Torah was the social and the communal and the cultural center of our lives, besides it being the place where we